as the block form. So if there is a short note on block form of the inside address, then it is obviously the American method. If it is indented form, it is the British method. Again, you can write each of these two methods with or without punctuations. So if you opt for the British method with punctuation, it is called close punctuation. If you are opting for the inside address without punctuation, it is called the open punctuation. So friends, in total, you can write the inside address in four different methods: the British method with punctuation, the British method without punctuation, the American method with punctuation, and the American method without punctuations. In the next slide, friends, I have given you the example of inside address written in the British method, that is indented method. You can see that each new entry leaves some space from the margin side, and so that is slightly slanting. It is leaving some, you have to leave some space, and that is the leaving of the space is known as um, indentation. So the method used by the British people is called indented form, because there is indentation. When you write the date, I mean inside address, you leave the space, and the space goes on increasing at the next level. So here is the example. I can read it out for you. The Lakshmi Traders is the name of the firm. In the next line, what you have written is the address, leaving more space than the first entry. So I have left some space from the margin side, maybe 2 or 3, and I have written the address 12 Sri Shiv Complex. In the next entry, I have again I have left more space, and again in the end I have mentioned the name of the city or town, which is Ambaji, which is followed by the pin number, pin code, and there is the maximum space. And you can see the slanting method. So this is called indentation. So British method is called indented form, in which you space more and more space after every entry, every new entry. So that is the slanting line you can draw, and that is exactly the indented method. You can see, friends, I have not used any punctuation mark. So this method of inside address is the British method with closed open punctuation, or the British method without punctuation. You can write the same thing in the block form, in which every entry starts only with the margin without leaving any space. So it is exactly looks like a block. So the American method is called the block form. For the shortage of time, I have not mentioned the I have not prepared the slide for you in the block form or the American method, but you can certainly turn this address into the block form, into the American method with punctuation mark, that is the close punctuations. And there may be a kind of question also to write, give the example of inside address. You can write this way if it is the British method without punctuation. So take care that you write it properly, you write it correctly, you give all the details of the inside address, you never miss any item, that is the address or pin number, maybe state whenever it is necessary, and don't forget to put the contact number at the end. So I think that is I think things are clear when it comes to the inside address. Now let us move to the next important part of the business letter, which is salutation. The place is very simple. It is just below the inside address. You have salutation at the left hand side margin. Generally we don't leave any space. And what is significance? It is a kind of saying hello. It is a kind of formal greeting to the receiver. So you start the letter, you start the writing the contents with a formal greeting, which is the salutation. Just as the heading is the crown, the salutation is called a formal greeting to the receiver. So take care that you greet the receiver before you start telling him something. So that is the kind of formal greeting. Dear sirs is the most commonly used salutation, but take care that it must match to the receiver. If there is single receiver and a woman, that dear sir would not do. In that case, you must write dear ma'am, because you are sure that the receiver is a woman, you are sure that the form is run by women only, then dear sir certainly won't do. So take care that it must match the receiver. Depending on the receiver, you must change your salutation. Next important point is writing the name of the recipient creates a goodwill. For example, you know that this is the sole person who is owning the party form, then you must write Dear Mr. Mehta, for example. You may write Dear Miss Patel. You may also prefix the titles like Doctor, Dear Dr. Sarvaiya. All these things may be there voluntarily depending on the case. But in an unknown entity, you are not sure who is the recipient in terms of whether it is individual or the group. It is only exclusively run by women. It is both. In that case, the safer side is to use dear sirs, which is generally common for all types of letters. So the salutation dear sirs is most commonly accepted salutation. Another important point is the detail which I have mentioned at the bottom. The salutation is followed by a comma. It means when you write the salutation, it must end with a comma. There must be the punctuation mark of comma at the end. I think that is more than enough. Take care that it is you never miss any salutation. It is a kind of formal greeting. It must end with a comma, and it may change depending on the recipient. These things are basic things. If a woman is there, you are sure that it is a woman, you must omit the salutation of dear sirs. Instead, you can go for dear ma'am or dear madam. So these are the things I have mentioned in short, that it must match the receiver, who is the recipient of the letter. Depending on that, in that way, you must change the salutation. Next topic is the body. As I told you earlier, the heading is the crown, the salutation is a formal greeting. Similarly, the body part is the soul or the heart of the letter. In any living entity, heart plays crucial role. If there is no heart, there is no life. If heart is there but it is not working, then again it is of no use. Similarly, friends, when you are writing a letter and you miss the body part, it is useless. It is no letter at all. Why it is so important? It is important only because it carries the message of the letter. So, if you want to convey the message, you write the letter. But if you write the letter and you don't mention anything in the body part, it is blank and it is of no use. It is a kind of mockery. So, the body part is very crucial, very important, and you must put the details. It is the mission of the letter. So, what is the important part of the letter? I have mentioned in item number 2. The content should be presented in the logically divided paragraphs. It means that it must not go from one line to the last, the first line to the last in a single paragraph. No, friends. It generally should be divided into paras, which you go for. It must be divided logically. And what I should bear in mind, the first thing must occur first, the last thing must occur last. It means the content should be placed logically. They must be divided into logically arranged paragraphs. Next important point is the text of the letter, the contents must be very clear, they must be very concise, and they must be correct. So it might not be misleading, it might not be have multiple meanings. The content must be clear in every respect, in terms of spelling, for example, in terms of the contents, the message it carries. For example, if I say any day next month, then it is very confusing. But I must specify that on 18th of December, that is clarity. If I says pay the bill, then it is very vague and general kind of statement. Instead of that, I must write to pay the bill dated so and so and giving the amount of the bill, that is clarity. It must be concise. So if you can finish the topic message in one line, you must not exceed the one line limit. You must not go for words and words and words and paragraphs. So it must be concise in nature, it must be compact in nature, it must be correct in nature. The body should be divided into logically arranged paragraphs, and the message should also be presented in a logical manner. It means the first thing must occur first, the last thing occur must last, and unnecessary details must not be the part of the business later. I think, friends, this is enough for you in terms of the body. Next part is called the complementary clause. Friends, as I told you when I talked about the salutation, and I said that it is a kind of formal greeting. You say hello, you say, for example, hello, or you may greet the other party with the kind of greeting of good morning. It is salutation. Similarly, when you conclude, you take formal leave, you say goodbye, and this goodbye or formal leave taking is the complementary clause. As the name it suggests, it is the closing part of the letter. So instead of leaving the thing in an indecent way, you show your decency by writing the decent word, which is the complementary clause, and it shows that you have ended the contents, you have ended the body part. Generally, your sincerely is most preferable and most commonly used complementary clause. The place of the complementary clause generally is at the end of the body, maybe one or two space below it. In the American method, the complementary clause is written at the left hand side margin. In the British method, it is written at the right hand side margin. So follow the method, either it is British, follow it properly. If you opt for the American method, follow it in full way. So in the American method, it is written at the left hand side margin, whereas in the British method, it is written at the right hand side margin, one or two space below the body. Another care must be taken is that only the first letter of the complementary clause is capitalized. As you can see in the item number 2 in this slide, I have written yours sincerely, in which only the first letter, which is Y, is capitalized. You are not supposed to capitalize the first letter of the second word also. So when it is yours sincerely, only Y is capitalized, not the S in the sincerely. If I may opt for sincerely yours, then S is capitalized, not the Y. So that is very important. Not both the words, the first letters of the both words are capitalized. Only the first letter in salutation, I mean in complementary clause, is capitalized. And the last important part in complementary clause is that there is no apostrophe in yours. Very often what you do is, or generally I may also miss, I may place the apostrophe before or after S in the yours, then it is wrong. It is wrong absolutely, friends. So never put any apostrophe in yours when you are writing the complementary clause. Next and the last is the signature. You can see very clearly on the slide that each letter must be signed by a competent authority, means authorized signatory. There may be number of persons working in an office. Not all the persons are eligible to sign any letter. It requires some authority, and authority is assigned to them by the company or the firm itself. So even if I have typewritten the letter, I am not supposed to sign the letter unless I am authorized. So the letter must be signed by the authorized signatory only, and it is by authority that he is eligible to sign the letter. So take care that each and every letter is, number one, signed. Number two, it is signed only by the authorized person. Next important point is, a letter without signature is having no legal validity. But nowadays, when you have got computer generated letters, it may not have the signature, but there is some specific mention that because it is a computer generated letter, there is no signature at the end. So it must be mentioned when it is e-letter or computer generated letter. Next is the point which you can see in the slide is per pro signature. It is also valid, friends. Per pro signature is a signature which is done by any person who is actually not the final authority, but in absence of the official signatory, the authority is given for signature to some junior or other assistant, and that is called per pro signature. It is a Latin word per procuration. So by authority, the other person is signing. He is not actually eligible to sign when the authorized signatory is available in the office. In his absence only, the person who is authorized to sign is called, that method is called per pro signature. Friend, that was the last part of the regular parts, and take care that without signature the letter is not valid. It means also that the signatory or the person who signs the letter is fully aware of the contents, and generally the contents or the message are also equally binding to him. So the person who signs the letter obviously becomes accountable for the contents of the letter. When it comes to the legal tangle, he is accountable. He will have to answer the questions or queries based on the contents of the letter. All these were the friends regular parts, and you may have other specific lectures, separate lectures for the occasional parts also. Still, if you have any problem, any question, I would like to answer you. But before I may conclude, these are the tips when you prepare the question on the regular parts. Number one, go through the details of all these parts. Number two, frame objective questions of your own, means you can ask your question based on the details you have. Next is, give example in short note questions. For example, inside address you write everything, and also at the end of that note you may place at least one example